You might have found yourself maybe like passing by the TV over the last few weeks. That's what happened to me. I don't remember who was playing, but I'm pretty sure it was a West Coast team because it was late. And there was this person talking. I just kind of saw it out of the corner of my eye. I thought, whoever that is, they're doing a good job. Well, it turned out to be Justin Jackson. Well, there's nothing we can do once we see how awesome Justin Jackson is on camera than have him on the pod. So you know him, you love him, former Tar Heel national champion, all around awesome dude. Justin, thanks for stopping by.
Of course, man. I appreciate those kind words. I'm kind of getting started, so obviously, there's things to get better at, but I appreciate those kind words. I'm enjoying it.
Catch people up just a little bit first on where they can find you right now and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I am currently, I guess this is going on my third year being done playing. Um, so now I just started this year doing studio stuff with ACC Network. It's kind of, I don't have a set schedule because it's the first year, so it's kind of testing the water, seeing how everything goes. But that's where I'll be Tuesday and Wednesdays whenever I am on it. I think my next one is this week actually coming up, Tuesday and Wednesday night. And then other than that, I do podcasts, The Field of 68. Actually with our guy T Hands. I think John Henson is on there as well. But other than that, just at home chasing these little ones around and trying to be the best husband and dad and everything involved that I possibly can be.
What do you like about TV, Justin?
We were just talking about it, but it's for one, it's a new challenge, right? Like it's something new that I've always said I wanted to try to do after I finished playing. A lot of people say it's a way to stay close to the game, but it's one of those things where it is something to stay close to the game, but you also see things differently when you're not playing, right? Like now, me watching and having to break down what I'm seeing from a fan perspective is different than how I felt when I was playing in a game, right? So now it's just something new to kind of get better at, still be able to talk about something that I love, stay close to it. And, it's not as taxing on the body. I think that's one thing too. Like playing basketball for so long, eventually it's like, man, my body, it's starting to hurt a little bit. So yeah, it's fun. I'm loving it. It's a new challenge, like I said, and just kind of see where it goes.
You just haven't had enough late night like fried meals yet when you're on the road. That is taxing on your body in a different way, Justin. It's coming. How do you see the game differently? How do you see it differently now compared to when you were out there on the floor itself?
Well, I think it's more of seeing the game differently. What's the right way to say it? When I watch a game now, I view it from a player's lens, obviously, because I played it for so long, right? So like there's certain things that happen in a game that like I might hear like somebody that's on the broadcast say this happened in that play, right? But I view it from a standpoint of like I've been in that situation and it's not as simple as saying, "Oh man, he just missed that assignment defensively," right? It's like no, maybe he was supposed to be switching and the guy that he was supposed to be switching with didn't do his job, so then it left him out to kind of be the one that looks like he's in the wrong. So just little things like that, seeing it from that perspective and trying to communicate that as opposed to just kind of like the blanket, oh man, he got backdoored or oh man, he blew that layup. It's like, yeah, there's certain things that are just black and white within the game, but just kind of viewing it from that player's perspective and then communicating that to whoever might be watching.
Well, and that viewpoint is exactly why we wanted to have you on, because we want to hear that viewpoint on the Tar Heels. Of course, Carolina beat Georgia Tech this weekend down in Atlanta, won 3 games in a row. What'd you see in that win over the Jackets that stood out to you?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my obviously, not saying it's right or wrong, but we know how crazy sports betting is now when it comes to sports. And I was talking to a couple of my wife's family members, and they were kind of saying like, what do we think? Does North Carolina go into Georgia Tech? Like, what is it? And I was like, I really don't know because the year we won it, we went into Georgia Tech and we got bullied a little bit. But I think over the last probably couple games, really ever since that West Coast trip, some of the changes that Coach Davis and that coaching staff has made, whether it's lineups or rotations or whatever it might be, I think you see a totally different team in my perspective. Like having a guy like Derek Dixon, who, yeah, he's a freshman, he'll have freshman mistakes, but as steady as he's played, and I've said it since I was there for pickup in during the summer, like as steady as he is, you can tell the ship is more steady, right? Like the rest of the team plays totally different with the way that he's able to command. Okay, you know what? We need to get into this play. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go make a play for somebody else. Okay, I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna knock down this open shot. Um, so I think a huge aspect of it is the way that he's been coming on lately. And then obviously you can talk it until you're blue in the face at how good those, Henry and Caleb are on the inside. Um, but I think it's just a different energy, right? Like it's a different consistency, different energy level, and it kind of has gone through the whole team, in my opinion.
What makes you think that it is different and it's not just playing bad teams?
Because they just beat Virginia and John Paul. Like my thing with that game, like I would once again, obviously I'm with the family all the time, but we were talking about, going into that game, like, what's one of the hardest places I've ever had to play. And in the ACC, like I don't even have to question, you can talk about Cameron all you want, but John Paul was by far the hardest place to go play in the ACC, in my opinion. And so, like them going into that game against a really good Virginia team, I thought was a huge step to be able to fight through the runs that Virginia had, the physicality that they had, and for them to be able to come back and end up winning and make that run down in the second half. Um, and once again, I think in college basketball, especially this year, right? Like you see a ton of front lines that are massive, right? So in college basketball, it was the same when I played. Like if you can control the paint and you also have really good guard play, you have a good chance to win a lot of games, right? And so I think, not saying that we didn't have good guard play, early on in the season. I think Kyan Evans is a very good basketball player. Um, but I think making that shift to Derek Dixon and now him personally taking that next step gave this team a different uh, feel to it, right? And it's contagious, right? When we had Marcus, everybody felt his steadiness, right? When we had Joel, everybody felt his competitiveness, his, not backing down from anybody. Um, the whole team feels that, right? And so having him step into that role and do it the way that he's doing it, I think that's why I look at it as far as that, as opposed to Georgia Tech is a little bit less talented than a lot of the teams in the ACC.
Justin, your game was obviously much more than just shooting, but you were an excellent shooter. Uh, Carolina in the game against Georgia Tech, just for example, boy, they had some good ball movement, had some good looks at threes. I don't think they made as many as they wanted to. Had they done so, that game could have been even more out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a guy who is a good shooter, but is going through a stretch that is, a couple games or even the first half of the year or whatever it may be, if you were that guy, like how do you break out of it? Is it just consistency? How do you do it?
It's funny because I mean they've got somebody on the bench in Marcus who went through one of the worst shooting slumps I've ever seen. I guess that would have been his junior or senior year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was that January. Um, and it's just a matter of consistency, right? Like you said, like I always had confidence, especially going into my junior year. Like I always had confidence from the work that I had put in before I stepped on the court for a game, right? So whether I missed shots in a game or not, I knew I had already put in probably every look that I was going to get in a game multiple times before that game. And so I think having that confidence going into it, and when you go through a slump, still staying consistent with the routine, right? I think a lot of guys, for one, they either get down and their confidence drops, or they feel like, oh man, I got to get in the gym. I got to get up 2,000 shots tomorrow, right? And I got to just get so many more reps. And it's like, in my opinion, consistency is what builds kind of that confidence and the ability to improve and get back on track. So I think that's all it is. Like when you look at some of these guys that, like you said, like I think the positive is that they are getting ball movement. They are getting guys to get into the paint, make plays, and get more open looks. Now it's just a matter of those guys kind of finding whatever rhythm that might be for them. But I think it's that consistency outside of the game, outside of pregame, that kind of gets you back to that level.
Sticking with shooting, Carolina's on pace to make more three-pointers per game this season than any team in program history, and also to attempt more three-pointers per game than any team in program history. Sometimes it's hard to rationalize that when you look down there and Caleb and Henry are standing down there near the basket. Can you explain why that approach makes sense, and would you alter that ratio at all?
I think it's just the way basketball is going. There's very select teams in college basketball now that doesn't shoot a lot of threes, right? Like the one team I think of off the top of my head is Arizona, right? Arizona's really one of the only teams that probably shoots less than 23s a game. Everybody else, it's fire away. And I think as a shooter, I love if you have an open look or if you're a good shooter, if you have any space, let it fly, right? I think with this team, it's massive as far as guys being aggressive and being a threat from the outside to open things up for Henry and for Caleb, right? If you've got guys that are afraid to shoot or just don't shoot, defenses start to make those type of adjustments, right? Like we've seen that over the last couple years of whether it's guys helping off of certain players or defenses like shifting off of certain sides of the ball because they want to focus on the bigs inside and they're not as worried from the perimeter. Well, this team, even though they're not necessarily shooting the percentage that I think that they could eventually, having that threat from the outside, like now you'll see more opportunities for Henry and Caleb, maybe one on one within the game. Right now, guys aren't able to just load up and double and then not worry about having to close out. Um, so, I mean, I think there's a fine line because you definitely have to feed those beasts inside. Like you can't, there should never be 3 or 4 possessions where those guys don't ever touch the ball. Um, but I think them being able to be a threat from the outside just opens things up so much more for them on the inside.
Justin, we've watched Caleb Wilson all season long and been impressed all season long with what he's been able to do. From a player perspective, what is it about his game that is so unique and so special and that has allowed him to have success that very few Carolina freshmen have had through the years?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, I mean, heck, you watch all these freshmen, right, in college basketball. Like it's unreal. I was just watching the BYU Kansas and watching those two guys go at it. And heck, Darren Peterson didn't even play the second half, and he, in my opinion, is one of the best college basketball players I've ever seen, period. But with Caleb, it's for one, his motor, right? He never stops attacking. And I think as a freshman to be able to be, for one, confident enough each and every game to go out there and play that way is massively impressive. But for two, for him to feel comfortable enough within the college basketball game in his first year to find his spots to be able to do that is even more impressive, right? Like as a freshman, and he's obviously at a different level than I ever was as a freshman, but as a freshman, I remember just trying to figure out, okay, where am I supposed to be? Right? Like there's so many times it's like, man, I got to make sure I'm in the right spot. I got to make sure that I'm, for us it was the whole secondary stuff. I got to make sure that I'm setting the back screen right. I got to make sure that I'm hitting the offensive glass. Like for him, it doesn't necessarily look like he's ever overthinking, right? Like he's just out there just doing what he's always done. And then two, I think you got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff and putting him in situations that allows his strengths to shine through, right? Like you see a lot of the isolation plays that he'll have out of the post, right? Like you see a lot of times maybe he'll be on the perimeter initiating the offense to where now he can possibly, get downhill off of, just going against a guy that maybe isn't as athletic or quick or whatever as he is. Um, and then you also, my last thing that I think people maybe they're giving him enough credit, but Henry's presence allows Caleb to be able to be as good as he is too, right? Like obviously Caleb has to have the talent, which he does, and more. But the way that Henry plays with Caleb, right, and the way that Henry takes attention off of Caleb at times, I think allows him even more freedom than he already seems to have. And so I think it's all of those things combined, but at the same time, I think everybody's impressed, right? Like the 6 months that he'll be in Chapel Hill, I think is definitely worth the price of admission, if that's the term you want to use, and worth everything else that comes with it.
Justin, the group of Evans, Stevenson, Bogovats, and Powell, based on what you've seen going all the way back to the summer, if you had to maybe point at one guy who you feel like he's capable of being consistent for 8 to 10 games and going on the type of stretch that this team needs from someone in that group, who are you looking at?
It's tough to pick because I think I think you named four of them. I think all four of them could be massive for this team, right? Like you saw against Georgia Tech, Luca hit multiple shots that were tough shots, right? And probably in that situation, he was one of the only guys on the roster that could have hit that, right? You've got a guy like Stevenson that brings so much versatility and plays so hard um, on both ends of the floor that he's going to be huge. You've got a guy like Kyan Evans who even though maybe he's not the starter now, he has experience in college basketball, right? He can knock down open shots. He's shown to be able to do really good things on the floor. So in a game where maybe Derek Dixon is having a freshman type game, he'll step in and do whatever he needs to do to help the team. And then a guy like Powell, it's just a matter of once again going back to the spacing. Like if he's a guy that can knock down two or three threes a game, right? Whether that's in transition or just spotting up or whatever. That just adds more space to the floor once again for those guys on the inside. Um, I think if I had to pick one, I think Stevenson is going to be somebody because of his length, his athleticism, his I'll give it motor, how aggressive he plays on both ends of the floor, and being 6'9", 6'10", however tall he is. Um, I think he could end up being really big, especially once you start going into tournament play and you start playing some of these teams that are probably bigger and maybe more physical. Um, I think he could be the guy, but I think all of those guys are still guys that you don't just move to the side. You say, hey, when that time comes, like it's going to be your chance, and that's kind of how I think you go forward.
I remember Coach Williams always used to say, Justin, I don't like that floater, but I don't mind if Justin Jackson. I'm allowed Justin Jackson to take it. Well, now everybody takes it. What did you know before everybody else knew about the value of this shot?
I wish I could give you like I had the percentages and I just did it because I didn't like going in there and getting hit. Like I just didn't like getting beat up. But I think I've always said it. Like I think everybody should have some sort of whether it's mid-range game or floater in between type game because like especially a point guard or a smaller guard, right? Like if you're not athletic and physically gifted like a Seth Trimble, right, who can go in there and he can go in the trees and still finish, then you're really limiting yourself to okay, I can really only shoot threes or maybe I'll shoot like a one dribble pull up, right? Well, if you're able to, like a Derek Dixon, if you're able to get into the paint on a consistent basis, he's not somebody that's going to athletically just take off and try to go dunk on somebody. But now you have the ability and you can be a threat in that mid range as opposed to something that people don't realize. Like as a big, you're taught, let's say, for instance, like pick and roll situation. If you're in a drop, we'll call it, like if you're at the level and you're supposed to just keep dropping to the rim, well, as a big, once the point guard gets to a certain spot on the floor, if he's not a threat, then they're told to just get back to the big that's rolling, right? So now if you have Derek Dixon coming down off of pick and roll with a Caleb Wilson or a Henry Vasar, and they know that he likes to get to that mid range or get to a floater or whatever. Now it puts that big in so much more of now he's trying to figure out do I go contest this? Because then if you do, now you can throw it anywhere by the rim and both of those guys will go get it. If not, then it could be an easy two for him. So I think that's why I've always viewed the floater as, you know, one of those shots that people, they act like they don't like it. Analytically, yeah, some guys probably shouldn't shoot it, right? But it's like, why would you limit yourself on the basketball floor ever? If you have that ability, then it can just be a threat even once you get to that kind of what people call no man's land.
What physically is hard about that shot. Like I think fans look at that shot and think like you're 12 feet away. That's an easy shot. None of us have ever done it. From someone who has done it, what are the keys to doing that well?
Not everybody has touch, right? Like that's just some people just are thankfully God gave me a little bit more touch than somebody else, right? You look at a guy like Bryce Johnson when he was at North Carolina, like his right hand hook, everybody just kind of viewed it as like, yeah, it's just automatic, like it's easy for him. Like if you put me in that situation with a right hand hook, I'm not hitting nearly as many shots as he hit his during his career at North Carolina. So I think that's one of them. Some guys are just made to have more touch and have the ability to kind of feel, how much do I need to put on it, how much arc do I need to do, whatever. But then it's just a matter of working on it, right? Like basketball at this point has become so threes and getting to the rim, right? And I think those are massive shots in the game, but you're leaving such a big area. You're just leaving that completely out of the game. And so it just comes from working on it. I think some of the best coaches and best teams and programs that you see, they mix it in a little bit, right? Like you look at once again, you look at Arizona, they don't shoot a ton of threes, but like those guards that they have and Bradley and all those guys that they have, they get to the mid range whenever they need to, and they're capable of making it. And I think with this team, if they're not going to be a 37, 38% three-point shooting team, having that ability to also be able to score in that area, I think is huge.
Justin, Carolina, of course, has Syracuse coming up tonight as people are hearing this on Monday night. And then it's the first Carolina Duke game of the season coming up on Saturday in Chapel Hill. Give us your quick Carolina Duke summation of being a part of that rivalry and some of those great matchups.
Man, it's looking back on it, like we played against some really good players, right? And this team is doing the exact same thing, right? Like this Duke team, as much as now that I'm in the TV and the media space, I got to be as unbiased as I possibly can,
Now, you don't have to
right?
be unbiased here,
Um,
Justin. You can say whatever you want.
but I've told people like as good as Duke is, unfortunately, as good as Duke is, I think we match up really well with this Duke team, right? Like it was kind of the same back whenever I was playing, right? It was like even though they won it that year, like Jahlil Okafor, and we had bigs to go against him, right? Obviously, he still did what he needed to do, but like we always kind of matched up pretty well with those Duke teams. I think this team this year matches up really well with this Duke team, right? You've got size on the inside to deal with Cam Boozer and Gongba and Malik Brown and all those guys they have on the inside. And then you look at the guard play, right? You've got an Isaiah Evans at Duke, a guy that Seth Trimble, I think, can really match up with and cause some trouble with his physicality and the way he can guard. Um, and then it's just going to be a matter of, okay, can Derek Dixon go into this type of rivalry game and continue to build on how he's been playing? Um, and so I think, we had a ton of big time games and big time players in our game, but I think it's going to be a good matchup. I'll be there uh, Saturday, 6 o'clock, right? 6:30. Um, so I'll be there, me, my wife, and brother-in-law, and I guess sister-in-law. We'll be in the building. But I've been telling people, and they probably look at me crazy because everybody thinks, Duke is amazing. But I've been telling them even whenever North Carolina went through, when we went through the West Coast trip, like guys, sometimes the game is all about matchups, and we've got guys that can match up if they come to play. They can match up with everybody else on that other side. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really good game.